Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, specifically Dungeons & Dragons 5e and family values. No, not really. I had no intention of talking about family values, particularly not a big spider. No, the topic for today is parlaying with monsters in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It's the hot topic. It's what so many people were looking for and hoping to get some really good stuff out of. So do we get that? So let's go directly to the text in the book because I think that's going to be really helpful to get us started. First off, the section on parlaying with monsters is not very clear. It only offers you general information you could probably figure out yourself, or on a specific type of monster, or in some cases more likely just a specific monster rather than even a monster type. Now that doesn't sound too great, does it? Okay, here's the other thing you may have noticed, and it's actually in the book. It states you can bribe or talk to a monster rather than fight them. Okay, well I kind of figured out that myself. It also refers you to the social interaction rules in the Dungeon Master's Guide on page 244 to 246. Okay, good. All right, so we're getting referred to a different book where, frankly, I thought the parlaying with monsters thing would probably be there. Well, actually, it kind of already is, believe it or not. Basically, if you go to the Dungeon Master's Guide, on those pages I just stated, it gives you the social interaction rules. And what it does is it gets the Dungeon Master to decide if the monster is friendly, indifferent, or hostile. And then it offers a series of tables. A table for the monster's reaction to whatever the charisma check you actually perform. And it gives you a difficulty class or DC. Now these charisma checks aren't necessarily spelled out. They could be an intimidation, it could be something like a persuasion, or even a deception. So any of those could sort of play into the charisma check. Okay, so I've got that. What's next? I've been told to go to another book and that I can just talk or they could bribe them. Okay, moving on. This is where we get a little bit better. The monster research skill table is a good idea. And I actually did something like this in an older video called Monster Knowledge Checks. But here we actually get something official and definitive. And you might have noticed though that it gives you the type of monster and the skill or knowledge skill associated with it. But it doesn't really seem to give you anything in terms of DC. So what are we missing? Okay, so what it does is it gives you a difficulty class. It states that the skill check for that difficulty class is 10 plus the creature's challenge rating. Okay, now I can see some problems. I talked about this sort of thing before where you add 10 plus the challenge rating of a monster for a knowledge check of any kind. Because what do you get? Usually you will get, on a very, very low challenge rating monster, a 10. Because 10 plus a fraction is going to be 10. And then for really high level monsters, you're going to get anything that's probably above 30. And yet our skill check range is usually between 5 and 30. And anything that's like a 5 or a 10 is usually a waste of your time. That's in my opinion. So you tend to get stupidly low DCs or impossibly high DCs to be successful on a knowledge check to figure out or do research on the monster. So what are we actually researching? I'll get there. But what I want to do is just talk briefly about this little formula and equation. It's something that Wizards of the Coast like to do. I can totally understand why they try to do it, but I think it's coming from a perspective that Dungeons & Dragons is mathematics, and Dungeons & Dragons is not really mathematics. It's left up to the Dungeon Master, if you have a log, to determine how the system will work, essentially, or to fix the system, or more likely, most of you are going to homebrew the system and change the DC system or the difficulty class system, but it doesn't actually state that in the book. Instead, they give you a formula. I would like to point out that this formula for figuring out how to do monster research is based on a system which the designers don't use in their pre-made adventures, they don't use in their own personal games, and is notoriously inaccurate. Challenge rating. So you're going to base something on an existing system that doesn't really work very well. I don't really understand the thinking behind this. But it's not all bad. We will get to some of the gooder stuff. Don't you worry. Okay, so monster challenge rating has very little to do with how hard it is to know their motives. If you have a look at how challenge rating is structured, it's about combat effectiveness, how difficult they are to fight, not how difficult it is to know their deep dark secrets, if they have any deep dark secrets, or to do sort of lore knowledge stuff. And frankly, Wizards of the Coast know this, so I don't know why they have included that in the book. It's an odd one for me. The monster desire tables are all right. When I looked at those, they are quite short, and I would say they are a bit too short. They can't hope to cover the wide range of monsters in any given type, because not every undead creature has the same motive or desires, even within the same type of creature. It's not like all undead will want the same things. That just doesn't work that way. Personally, I think what is going to be more useful to you is don't roll randomly on the monster desire tables. When you go to a table and decide to use them, don't roll randomly, but instead be very selective and pick out the ones that make sense for a particular monster you are dealing with. If they don't make sense, don't use any of them. Many of the monster desires are related to, I would say, intelligent creatures or monsters, rather than the not so bright or the dumb monsters, and certainly some of them are very specific that would only really be keyed into a particular type of monster given your game. So let's have a look at these monster tables and break them down and see what we get, because I know a lot of you want to actually see what we're going to get in the book, right? So the first one, aberrations. So what are the desires that are available? What would be something that we would be interested in if we were an aberration? The brain or the organs of a rare creature. I can live with that. Flattery or flattery and something else. I can't even pronounce it right now. I'm tired. Secrets or lore it doesn't already know. Okay, I can live with that. Yep. Accept a strange... Oh, okay, so that means the player's character has to accept a strange or an organic graft onto their body, which probably, if they're doing that, is going to have some way of controlling them or changing them in some rather diabolical way. So I think with this table, it's going to be great for the beholders, the elder brain, and the mind flayers. Not really applicable to a gibbering mouther or an otiok, which is basically the garbage monster for Dungeons and Dragons. What about the beasts? What have we got for beasts? Well, desires, fresh meat. Okay, I kind of figured that one out. A soothing melody, brightly coloured beads, cloth, feathers or string. An old stuffed animal or other soft trinkets. I guess trinkets or toys, something like that. Well, what is that going to be applied to? Maybe it's going to apply to some cats, some birds, some fish. Maybe some of the medium to small carnivores will be interested in the meat. I don't know they'll necessarily be interested in the other things there. Not really generalizable to all the beasts. It's not likely to work with a dinosaur. I don't think I would try this with a dinosaur. You could throw a dinosaur meat, yes, but I think that the meat that you throw them is not going to be as enticing as the meat in your body that will provide them with far more nourishment. Okay, what about celestials? What do we have there? A tale of heroic figure. Okay, cool. An oath to do 3 charitable deeds before dawn. All right. the crown of a defeated tyrant, a holy relic, or a treasure, some sort of treasured family heirloom. Okay, so who would that apply to? I think that's a reasonable motive or motives for something like a diva, a planeteer, solar, angel. Not really suitable for an unaligned or an evil celestial or monster. I don't think they're really going to care about those sorts of things. So, yeah, it's not going to be completely generalizable, obviously. And I think, to be fair, it would be impossible to provide a table that covered all the bases in a monster type. Although there are some exceptions I discovered as I was looking through here. So the next table we need to look at is the constructs. What would a construct want? Oil to be applied to the construct's joints. Well, maybe if they're made of iron. I don't think that a clay golem or some of the other golems or constructs would care. So if they've got joints that are made of metal, maybe if they rust. A magic item with charges to be used as fuel. All right, provided they understand that can be done. So that suggests the construct needs to be pretty intelligent. A vessel infused with elemental power. Okay, I can see that being pretty useful for most elementals. Adamantian or mithril components. Right, okay, so what are they going to do with them? How are they going to apply them to themselves? That's an interesting problem there. Okay, I'm going to say all right. These are motives that are all right for an independent and intelligent construct, which, if you might have already guessed, is actually pretty rare. In fact, very rare. They don't really come up that often. These desires that are suggested aren't really going to supersede or override the creator's instructions, and they're way too specific. I think that they would be very difficult to use with many of the constructs that exist in the game currently. And then the reason why is a construct is usually pre-programmed. So therefore, trying to give something to a construct that's following a pre-programmed instruction from its creator means that parlaying or talking with them is probably not going to be quite so easy to do. So I'm going to give Wizards of the Coast the benefit of the doubt of trying really hard, given that you're dealing with a situation where talking is probably going to be not on the cards. Okay, what about dragons? Dragons are a big one, right? Golden gems, anything from a draconic rival's horde, okay, an antique, is it an antique passed down at least 3 generations? So antiques, all right, well, I can believe that. Flattery, artistic depiction of the dragon. Yep, I actually think this is pretty good. I think this is actually really helpful in almost every single case except for Drake's. I would just like to point out that I think most of us have already figured out that giving a dragon gold, gems, and rare items is probably going to be something they want. We probably didn't need Wizards of the Coast to tell us that. It would have been nice to see something else, but there's nothing actually wrong with this table. It's actually mostly generalizable. Number 6, the elementals. What do we got for the elementals? This is a tough one, I feel. A gem worth at least 50 gold pieces, really? It has to be worth at least 50 gold pieces. Do elementals even know how much a gem is worth? Which the creature will then eat. So it's going to eat gems. All right. An exceedingly pure sample of a favored element. Or, okay, all right. Cool. A way to return the elemental to their home plane. That actually is a pretty good one. Performing a dance from the elemental's home plane. Okay. Feel like this is a little odd one, but let's give it to them. How does this apply to what we have in terms of monsters in our game? Yes, I spent many hours going through every single one trying to see if these desires were applicable to a range of different monsters. So I think this is a nice idea for the elemental. It's pretty good for general elementals like your fire, water, air, earth elementals, those challenge rating 5 creatures that we have in the Dungeon Master's the Monster Manual. Mephits, I think Mephits would probably go for a lot of this. I think you could probably use this, but then most people don't really worry about a Mephit because Mephits aren't that powerful, unless of course you modify them. The other thing I would say is this is not going to be useful for a gargoyle. Gargoyles aren't going to care in the slightest about most of this. And if you're dealing with a really super powerful elemental being, I don't think they would really worry about any of that. If they need to go back to their home plane, chances are they left their home plane, came to your plane to wreak havoc and to have their own way. So I don't think there's too much you can really do with a super powerful elemental being. But that doesn't mean you can't try it out. Okay. The next one, this gets a little bit interesting. It gets more, how can I say this? We are entering into the kinky range, for those of you who haven't figured it out. The Fae. Now, what do we got here? The memory of your first kiss. Okay, I like that. The colour of your eyes. An object of deep sentimental value to you. Okay. Reciting a sublime poem. Does it have to be a sublime poem? Can't you just recite any poem? I guess not all poems are equal. So who does this apply to? What monsters? I think this is focused on the Dryad, Satyrs, Pixies, Siren, maybe a Siren, Sprites. Nonsensical for a Blink Dog or Hags. I don't think that Blink Dogs or Hags would care in the slightest about any of that. So you don't want to apply that in that case. But there's quite a few that it would apply to. Next, Fiends. What do they want? Your soul. I kind of figured that one. A desecrated holy object. Yep. Blood from a living or recently slain loved one. Well, that's pretty sick, but okay. Breaking a sacred promise in the fiend's presence. Oh, okay. So, delicious stuff. So, who is this focused on? I think the key motives for this are around intelligent devils. More around intelligent devils rather than unintelligent devils. Certainly it would apply to something like maybe a demon lord, which is good. And maybe the Barbed Devil would be a good example of where you could apply it. We often find ourselves, if you're running a pre-made adventure with the Barbed Devil, it seems to be one of the favourites for Wizards of the Coast. If you're running your own campaign, you probably have all sorts of things. Where does it fall flat? Demons will not really care about most of these. Okay, demons in general, the lower level ones, wouldn't give two hoots. They're just there for death and destruction, and you trying to provide these things to them, they're going to take them anyway. Now, I would say Dretches, Mains, and Lemurs, they're really not going to be interested. They're just not smart enough to know what they're getting. Okay, you're giving them something they just don't really know what to do with. So I wouldn't apply that in that case. Okay, number 9. Let's have a look at this. This is the Giants. Okay, a dwarf admitting giant craft to be superior to dwarf craft. So a dwarf is admitting to a giant that their stuff is not as good as a... Oh, well, I think that works. I can see that. There is a rivalry between dwarves and giants. A strong working animal. Really? Or just a tasty working animal? Can't it be just a tasty working animal rather than a strong working animal? Multiple barrels of ale. I'll give them that. Treasure stolen from a rival giant. Well, heck, it could be any treasure. Frankly, I don't think it has to be stolen from a rival giant. Giants are all good with money most of the time. So most giants would have these goals. I think this is actually pretty good for what you're getting. Except for, say, something like the Hill Giants. You just don't know what a Hill Giant's going to do. And ogres, hard to know. They're too stupid half the time to realise that you're giving them something that they couldn't just take themselves. You could give them something like this and they would probably still attack you anyway. So probably not quite so useful for an ogre. Maybe even a troll. I don't know that necessarily a troll is going to be interested in those sorts of things. They're just going to do what they want anyway. Okay, next chart. This is the 10th chart there is. Humanoids. Promising to find a lost item of great importance to their culture. Interesting. Challenging them to a type of friendly contest such as a dance, singing or drinking. Okay, welcome the bards. Recovering something they have lost. Alright, that can kind of work for a lot of different creatures, provided they're reasonably intelligent. And most humanoids are pretty intelligent, so these kind of do work. Information on a foe's secrets or weaknesses. Okay, I'm going to give them a big thumbs up. Pretty good overall, but there should be more. I mean, you think about humanoids, there should be significantly more than just 4 there. Rather than just 4, we should have probably had more like 10. I can see there being multiple things you could have applied generally across the humanoids. But, again, pretty good. Okay, table number 11 is Monstrosities. This is where it gets interesting. I've been hanging out to talk about this one. Dislodging the stuck scraps of a creature's last meal. Okay, so you got your armor, somebody's armor stuck in your teeth, or maybe there's a thigh bone that you couldn't quite get loose, or yeah, okay, I'll leave it. Feels very sort of Dragonheart to me. The creature's favorite food. Cool. Is the creature's favorite food you? That's the question. Is it one of the player's characters? Yes, you probably can offer them that. Driving off the creature's rivals. Yeah, okay. Making movements that mimic the monster's mating dance. Oh, I like that one. I can see a lot of problems coming up, but it'll be entertaining. So what do I have to say about this? Generally useful with, I would say, potentially kinky options. That kind of made me laugh. That last one in particular really did. I couldn't help but sort of find that quite amusing. Now, it's not really relevant to a low wisdom or low intelligence monster, particularly if they're low wisdom and low intelligence. Something like a purple worm or a piercer is probably not going to be interested in any of those sorts of things. The creature's favourite food is pretty obvious, but is the creature's favourite food the player's character? That's the question. Now, I want to go back to the last one on the monstrosities because it's worth discussing. I want you to imagine that one of your players decides to do the mating dance, figures out what the mating dance of a particular monster is, and starts performing that. And if they are successful, the monster thinks it's making advances towards them and then moves in for that sexual encounter. Can you see the expression on your players' faces and the Dungeon Master as they have to deal with that? A bit of advice around having to deal with players who try to seduce a monster probably would be useful here because, one, it's a great opportunity for something that's quite amusing, and I'm all for amusing. But two, it could make a few people uncomfortable, and a little bit of advice around this sometimes can be helpful. You don't have to provide a manual though. Okay, table number 12, oozes. What do we got here? A vial of putrid liquids. Okay. Cloth bearing a noxious odour. Ogre? No, odour. Not an ogre. But I think ogres are probably noxious. Bones or metal which the ooze promptly absorbs. Okay. A gallon of any effervescent fluid. Effervescent fluid? I've never even thought that oozes might be interested in frothy fluids. Maybe they are. I guess they're not snails. So now, how does this work in terms of our monsters? The ooze. They don't really care about what they eat. So you could throw anything at an ooze and they'll probably try to consume it, generally. I mean, not all oozes are exactly the same. But what I find interesting is that oozes prefer flesh, don't they? And that's apparently not on the menu. So I would have thought mentioning that you can throw a chunk of meat or a animal alive or dead. Maybe push one of your fellow mates into the creature and they'll be happy while you run away, or attack it or whatever. So I think that one of the key motives for any ooze is going to be living flesh, because they tend to generally consume that sort of stuff to get their nutrients. And if you don't believe me, go and check out AJ Pickett and his YouTube channel, and he talks about oozes there, and I'm sure he will confirm that. Okay, the second to last table, this is table number 13. There's a lot of tables here. Plants, what are their desires? A pound of mulch, okay? Water from a spring infused with fey wild energy, all right? Clearing an invasive or a nasty vegetation from the creature's territory. So basically weeds, things that they don't like in the area. I get it. Destroying all axes and fire-making implements the party is carrying. All right. Okay, so how does this work with plants? This is all pretty obvious if you ask me. The last one was a bit more creative. I feel like they get definite points for that. Maybe even the second to last one. It didn't really enlighten me. I didn't feel like it sort of did anything else. Does it apply to plants? Yeah, I think it probably does. So it does its job, okay? Even though I think it's pretty obvious. Okay, table 14. This is the last table. The undead. So what do the undead want? A vial of blood. Or maybe a vampire does. A personal memento from the creature's past. Right. Materials, tools, or the skills to sunproof a crumbling mausoleum. I feel like we'll go back to the vampire. Completing a task the creature was unable to finish in life. That sort of sounds like a ghost to me. So I would say this table could relate to a lich in some cases. I think a lich might be interested in a personal memento from the creature's past, but God knows what they would do with it. Materials, tools, or skills. Just that section would certainly relate to a lich. But I do feel a lot of it is talking about the vampire, and the last one feels like it's definitely talking about the ghost. Here's the problem. Not really useful for zombies and skeletons, but I'm sure you already figured that out, so in that case you probably won't use this chart for zombies and skeletons. There are other undead that I don't think would really care about these sorts of things, because they can't do anything with these sorts of things. Particularly the incorporeal creatures. They don't really care about the sort of stuff that we care about, so none of that's going to really work. Okay. The monster desire tables need a few more relevant examples. I have tried very hard to provide you with some examples and sort of some critique to help you, just in case you were unsure how to make that work. But it would have been nice, since the chart is mostly just blank space, if they had put down the desire and given us a couple of examples of creatures that might have that particular desire. I think that would have been really helpful for new dungeon masters, but even experienced dungeon masters. It's a nice idea. There's not really enough guidance here that's offered by the design team or Wizards of the Coast. Or in some cases you wind up with irrelevant mechanics that don't apply at all, or just suggestions that don't really apply at all. Not always the case, because there are some tables there that actually work pretty well, as I've just discussed. So if you found this video helpful and informative, that's fantastic. If you want more videos on Tasha's Cauldron of everything, you'll need to let me know. If you are interested in a knowledge check around monsters, I actually have a video already on monster knowledge checks and how to sort of make them work in your game, and you're welcome to go and check out that video. Otherwise, I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters I'm sure you will find useful. If you want to support the channel so I keep doing content like this, you can do that through Patreon down in the description. I also have an Amazon affiliate link down in the description. You can check out my merchandise shelf, or just watch my videos, that's fine too. Make sure to share, like and subscribe, hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos, all those normal YouTube things. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.